Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I'm Richard and this is Lap of the World. You join me for what I'm going to call official part 9 for our NSX Major Service Series, sponsored by ATR, nsx-parts.com, link in the description, in which we've been working on our 1992 NSX back here, which at 289,000 miles was due for its third or fourth timing belt and water pump service, as well as several other while you're in there items, some bigger than others. But what we are doing today is kind of a follow-on from last Tuesday's video. And the links to all the entire series is down in the description as well, in case you've missed out on that and want to catch up. But last Tuesday, we got the valve covers back from powder coating. We reinstalled the baffles on those and started to kind of dress them for reassembly before having to stop on account of missing a couple of small pieces, which we fortunately now have. Now, one piece of trivia I would like to address is there was some speculation in the last video as to what the baffle actually does. I suspected it was some kind of splash baffle for oil. It is actually, in fact, related to the PCV system in the car. I appreciate Paul, won't say your last name, but thank you, you know who you are, for the detailed explanation of how all of that works. Basically, the reason that they're sealed in the way they are, if it was just a splash baffle, you probably wouldn't need the liquid gasket that went on to hold them in place. But because they are sealed like that, it creates kind of a labyrinth that the crankcase vapors need to go through to get back and get recycled through the PCV system in a car. If you need to know how a PCV system in a car works, I'm not going to explain that right now. Google is your friend. But the short version is that those baffles allow the crankcase vapors to get recycled into the intake without having a lot of liquid oil come with it. So it kind of provides this path that the vapors have to go through that filters out and lets all of the liquid oil either condense and drain back. So that is what they do at a high level. There was also some again, kind of stuff I don't know, and people can corroborate this as well. But the flow direction of the PCV kind of differs from low load to high load in the C-Series motors. Whereas under under normal driving conditions, most of that vapor is getting pulled out the top of the front bank cover and fed back into the PCV system. Whereas under high load, it's getting pulled out the side, right here, this little pipe here, the side of the rear bank, and pulled back into the intake. And that is why I guess apparently there's a thing, which I haven't noticed this on my car, and I track it fairly often, as if you've been subscribed, you would understand this, but apparently that's why that kind of location and design is why some of the C30 engines tend to end up with a little bit more oil in the intake than the later C32B. So just some trivia there for you, but that's where we stopped last time. This time, we are going to actually get to the point of installing the valve covers. So I have the errant gasket section, see where I'm pointing up here, which was the timing cover gasket section, which is what I was missing last time. And then I also have the main gasket and the coil, spark plug well gaskets, all kind of dotted in place with HondaBond. Again, that process is described in the previous video, which there's a link below. So what we're going to be doing today, though, is installing the valve cover. That sounds fairly simple. Yeah, sure, you just put it on the car. Well, not quite. Before we can get to actually setting it in place, we do have to spend a little bit of quality time in the engine bay doing some prep work. So the first order of business back in the engine bay at this point is to make sure that your mating surface, so this flat on top of the head, is immaculate. You should look to have essentially no... so I've spent some quality time back here and, there's nothing left there. Here, we're white paper towel. A white paper towel, a little wipe there, and no appreciable marking on that. So you want this surface to be completely devoid of any debris, be that old HondaBond, or oil or anything else, gas pieces of the old gasket that stuck to it or anything like that. So, do what you need to do. Hit it with some solvent. I used a plastic razor blade. You don't want to use probably a steel razor blade because you have the chance of nicking it. If you do have or notice that you have some if you had a real scar across here, kind of across the middle, like on the edge, this outside corner, like I got a little bit of a nick right there, that's not going to be where the gasket seats. You can kind of see, even after I cleaned it, you can see a little bit of a line of where the old gasket seated. If you have any kind of scarring that goes across that area, that's probably going to end up leaking. At that point, I would advise probably using the thinnest possible layer of some liquid gasket just to fill in that, fill in that gap. But I would almost, run it over there like you would, some kind of spackling or something, and then, apply it and then scrape it, then scrape across it so that it's just filling the void or the scar, rather than leaving any layer of it, outside of that. This is one of those rare situations where I asked about this as far as the method for installation of the or of the valve covers, and there was a near unanimous agreement on the methodology to do so, and I'll be covering that in this video. I did ask about it and got some kind of expert opinions because I wanted to make sure that as I'm presenting it here, it's going to be the one best way. But it was pointed out by numerous very experienced technicians, some of which have been associated with, with the Honda factory, that this mating surface has to be immaculate for it to really work. So I'm going to finish up what I'm doing here, getting all of the any remaining liquid gasket or other oil schmoo off of this area, and then we'll get on with installation after that. So with our surface as immaculate as we can get it, the next thing on my list was a little bit of housekeeping. And by housekeeping, I mean getting stuff out of the way. There are a lot of little cords and hoses in this area that could easily cause a fumble when you're reinstalling your valve cover, and since you're going to have some delicate application of liquid gasket involved, that would be a bummer because it might lead you to basically a do-over, necessitating that you clean and try again. So what I have done is I have rotated the PCV hose out of the way up here. I've used a temporary zip tie to hold this wiring loom out of the way. And I've also used a couple of temporary zip ties back here to deal with the, that's the kind of O2 sensor and oil pressure sensor wire loom that kind of goes around the back side here. The one I have left to deal with is this O2 sensor, and I'm just going to drop it down into the abyss for the time being, thus getting it out of the way. Yes, I said rear bank installation. I've felt a little bit bad that I think the last couple of how-tos that I've done with respect to front versus rear bank, I've used the front bank because it's a little easier to both do and film. So I figured for this time we'll go with hard mode and try to do the rear bank and get what I can on film of that method, because honestly, that's going to be the tricky one to deal with. So if you've stopped paying attention, now is the time to start again, because now is where we're going to talk about the one best way of doing this. This was unanimously agreed upon largely by several very experienced techs, some of them with Formula One involvement at some point in time or another, and others with ties to the factory. So pay attention to what I'm going to tell you. This is how you do it. Generally speaking, this installation is dry. So I've seen other methods of doing this where people have put, thin layers of HondaBond just about everywhere. That is not correct. The correct way of doing it is to put a small line of HondaBond at each of these 4, or I guess it's 8 corners, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, where you have these corners. You see that there's a little bit more surface area on these, and that will kind of help spread out the HondaBond. And the way that I've been shown to do this is to apply a tiny bead down the center of this, and then it will just sort of spread on its own as it is compressed once it's installed. Everything else should be left dry, and again, if you have clean enough mating surfaces, that should avoid any leaks. And with our cover appropriately schmooed, let's go throw this thing on the car before the HondaBond starts to set up. HondaBond definitely doesn't cure immediately, but you are in a little bit of a race against time. So just to avoid any unnecessary fiddling time, I went ahead and pre-staged a preset torque wrench to 10 Newton meters, roughly 7 foot-pounds, 10 millimeter deep well socket, because you're going to need a deep well for the 2 middle screws, or 2 middle bolts, nuts, whatever we're putting on. And I've also staged these grommet washers here as well. In here. There we go. All right, folks, well, that is one hard mode rear bank valve cover reinstalled, hopefully successfully. Unfortunately, your measure of success here is kind of long game. Do you have an oil leak or not? Which we won't be able to tell until we really get the car all the way back together and fired up and oil circulating through it again. And just as a reminder, I am doing an oil change on the car before I put everything back together, just to kind of hopefully catch and flush out anything that I may have, any solvent that got into the cylinder heads or other, bits of liquid gasket and stuff like that will hopefully get drained out at that point in time. And I'll probably do another oil change fairly quickly thereafter, again, just to make sure that I don't have any contaminants in circulation. But some quick notes on that. Again, kind of a reminder that the way that you install and uninstall the rear bank on the NSX when the engine's in the car is you have to put the passenger side, or I say passenger side, USDM passenger side, or the timing belt end of the cover. You kind of slot it down first and then you rotate it up. So that's how you take it out. That's how you put it back in. Does mean you have to be a little bit extra careful not to dab the timing belt with HondaBond or anything like that. I had one do-over on this installation, which was unfortunate, but I managed. It was because the wire harness holder on the top rear bolt of the rear upper timing cover, rear upper timing cover, that was kind of in the way of that lower corner of the cover going cleanly into place. So I just undid that bolt, removed the wiring harness, and zip tied off to the side, and then tried again. I managed to accomplish that pretty quickly, obviously off camera, because I was trying to make sure I stayed ahead of the HondaBond setting up at all. I had to wipe up a couple of different spots, reapply a little bit of HondaBond beads on the corner areas of the gasket. But then on round 2, went in fairly smoothly. And then as far as the putting the bolts on, this is one of those things where you're trying to smush a gasket evenly. There is no specified in the manual pattern for tightening down the valve cover bolts, but I just went with what was logical to me and started with the 2 center bolts and then went around the outside. And then when I went back to torque, I torqued the 2 center ones first, and then kind of star patterned it after that, because that made sense as far as getting even pressure. Obviously, your priority on the rear bank is probably the bottom of it. But again, you don't want to over tighten. 10 Newton meters is all you should need. And by all accounts, that should keep everything from leaking. So I'm hoping I'm good. If I did my job correctly, cleaned everything, and managed to get the cover in position as tidily as I think I did, I should be set to go. So then it is now time to get the front bank on, and then we will come back to you with the finished product, and you can actually see what all those fancy, what all the powder coat and paint has got me as far as engine bay appearance here at the end. All right, folks, well, there you have it. I don't have everything quite buttoned up all the way yet, but that should give you a good idea of what it generally is going to look like when I'm done in the engine bay. And everybody has their own taste, but to me, I'm fairly pleased with how this has come out. I don't think it's too obnoxious or or ostentatious looking, at least not to my taste. So, you know, my car, that's what matters, I guess. But anyway, we are done with the valve covers. Everything went on pretty well. I got in a little bit of a fight with the lower, kind of the bottom edge of the lower cam plug back here. I just had a weep coming out of a little oil passage that I had to get to. It took me a while to dry it up, but I eventually did get that squared away, got the valve cover on and fastened down in good order. I did have to deal again. I think I have the, somebody mentioned I have what is apparently an old style upper timing cover, or plural upper timing covers at this point. You can't really tell from the outside, but on the inside, the newer style have a little bit better relief cut out for the exhaust cam pulley. I had to get in a little bit of a fight with this one to get it wedged under the valve cover as I was setting it down, but I did accomplish that, so we have it nice and flush there with a gasket, I might add. So mission accomplished, and that's where we're gonna largely call it for today. I think you know, it's gonna be kind of general assembly. The next video will hopefully be, fingers crossed if all goes well, bleeding the coolant system. But I have a little bit of work to do in the meantime, so I'm going to turn the camera off and get on with that. Again, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the series, don't forget to subscribe, as we'll have more NSX projects down the road. Although we are fortunately about to see the finish line for this one, I believe, so that we can get back out into the world and check some more racetracks off our list. But until that happens, I'm Richard, this is Lap of the World, and I will see you all in the next video, if not out of the track.